place to burn. That's the way it is. That's the way it is.
There's a good man within you, but he is wrestling with a giant.
Rockstar Games is probably the singular most powerful development studio by virtue of reputation alone. Their only competition in that arena is arguably CD Projekt Red, the developers of the Witcher series, which explains itself. And as time has gone on, Rockstar's game releases have become further and further apart, leading to each upcoming game, whether it be confirmed or rumored, blowing up the gaming community and exciting them like nothing else can quite do. There's no better example of this than Red Dead Redemption 2. Their most recent release, and the sequel to possibly their best written, most interesting game to date. Ever since the first teaser in 2016, fans were on pins and needles patiently waiting for any new piece of information on the game as the hype train picked up steam approaching the game's release. This game was meant to be Rockstar's foray into realism on a level attempted by few games before and successfully executed by even fewer. When it was revealed that players would have to feed themselves to stay healthy, wear proper clothes in certain environments, and even that your horse's testicles would change in size depending on the weather, gamers, myself included, were blown away by the amount of detail that was certainly put into the game and could not wait to get their hands on it when it finally released October 26th last year. What about the narrative, though? Did it reinforce the necessity of the level of supposed realism in the world of the game? And, more importantly, did it hold up against the story of the first game? Now, because we're not stupid, we knew for a while that the game would be a prequel to the first game, which was made even more obvious when it was revealed that this time we'd be playing as an original character by the name of Arthur Morgan, who was supposedly Dutch Van Halen's closest friend before he, lost his mind and became a villain, and he was also a mentor figure to John Marston, the first game's protagonist. Of course, though, that meant we were going to gain some insight as to what sort of person Dutch was and how the gang used to be and what sort of world we were dealing with 12 years before the events of the first game. Okay. However, there was every certainty that no matter what happened, we were in for a hell of a ride and we were bound to love it every step of the way. The game is divided into 6 different chapters, typically denoted by a massive change in scenery caused by the gang needing to relocate in response to something that happened shortly before that chapter began. From Blackwater, before the game begins, to Coulter, then to Horseshoe Overlook, then Clements Point, then Shady Belle, then Guarma, believe it or not, and then ending in Beaver Hollow. Not including the 2-chapter epilogue, we'll get there eventually. Now, it becomes very apparent somewhat early that the mission structure is going to follow a very distinct pattern across the duration of the game. You approach a character, you watch a cutscene, then you ride your horse somewhere, and you shoot your way out, you get paid, and you rinse and you repeat. Again and again for the next 45 hours or so. Now, whether or not that sounds boring is up to you and what you enjoy, but you can't deny that it's very repetitive, uninspired, and overall lazy considering how long they spent developing the game. Some say 6 years, some say 8. Now, the mind-numbing thing that you get from this structure is that you can never tell when you're approaching a place in the story where anything is about to change. How is this bank robbery in Valentine any different from the one in Saint Denis that gets Lenny and Hosea killed? You can't possibly know going in, so you never feel any sense of progress until the game tells you that it's just time to move on. Just do these cardboard cutout missions again and again until a named character gets shot. Then you're in business. And to add insult to injury, when something goes bad and it's time for the gang to relocate, they only move about 1 town over. The authorities in the Old West must have just been extraordinarily lazy. But that's just the plot structure. What about the plot itself? Well, firstly, that implies that there is one to speak of, when in all honesty, there really isn't until the second half. Secondly, the only thing apart from the visuals that keeps this game from making you want to pull your teeth out from the mundanity is the amazing cast of characters. Arthur Morgan is far and away the greatest protagonist in Rockstar history, and you truly feel for him every moment of the game, as he seems to be really the only voice of reason in a world of chaos. Apart from him, there are familiar faces such as John and Jack Marston, of course, Abigail Roberts, Uncle Lumbago, Bill Williamson, Javier Escuela, and star of the show, Dutch Vanderland, as well as newcomers such as Sean McGuire, Charles Smith, Hosea Matthews, Lenny Summers, and the best supporting character in any game that I've ever played, at least, Sadie Adler, and of course, Micah Bell. Hold on to that name. I'm coming back for it. Now, with the game being a prequel, of course you'd expect it to be able to show Dutch's sanity slip away from him until he becomes the manic villain from the original title, right? Well, no, not until the 4th chapter. Up until then, he's just as charming as you would want your gang leader to be. And he talks like this. And I understand the concept of pacing, right? But once you hit that mark, he goes 0 to 100 just about instantly. You get whiplash from how inconsistent the so-called pacing is. Arthur also begins the game with a deep resentment of John for leaving the gang for a number of years before the game even takes place, because he was worried that Jack wasn't actually his son or something like that. However, in the 6th chapter, all that goes away and he starts becoming a mentor figure for John and shapes him into the character that you know him to be. He does this for a reason, but it's a reason that you don't find out unless you do the Rains Fall side quest, which adds about 3 hours to the campaign. So if you don't know, I won't tell you because it's the responsibility of the game to explain that. You shouldn't have to go hunting for why this character is doing something, but whatever. On the topic of things going unexplained though, Micah Bell, who I mentioned earlier, constantly rubs the player the wrong way. From his introductory scene where he harasses Sadie to the mission where he makes you rack up a huge bounty by killing just about the whole town of Strawberry, and it all caps off in the least surprising way possible. Turns out that Dutch goes insane because Micah has just been playing yes man to him all this time, which supposedly started before the game takes place, as well as Dutch's descent into madness, but it's kind of put on hiatus for the first 24-25 hours of the campaign. Cute stuff, right? Surely. Could you imagine if the shift in him had been caused by Arthur maybe realizing that the world is becoming more civilized and the ways of the Old West are fading out, and he thereby tries to convince Dutch to come off this path, but Dutch is torn because this life is all he knows, and he ultimately makes the wrong choice? And then between the events of both games, he descends into madness because of all those years spent being lonely caused by one mistake. But no, that would have been too smart. That would have taken, effort. We would have had to try just a little. So, of course, they didn't do that. Arthur Morgan is the most rooted, most developed, layered, interesting main character Rockstar have ever cooked up. Unfortunately, they couldn't find a way to end his story very well. See, at a certain point, the gang pulls a heist that goes awry and they end up stranded in Guarma. What are you talking about? That totally fits the narrative of the game both before and after, and doesn't serve solely as a chance for Arthur to get some alone time with Dutch and Micah and see Micah's effects on Dutch's psyche in an environment where you aren't distracted from the main story by stranger missions, which are admittedly pretty entertaining. But after that, you return to America, and Arthur develops a deadly cough. It's rough. Guy's in pain. And it turns out that he's contracted tuberculosis, which came as the result of a mission that he carries out in the 2nd chapter for another member of the gang who is later revealed to be an absolute scumbag. Total douche nozzle. Arthur's life is now on the line, and his days are numbered because of his loyalty. And even though, by all rights, he should go live the rest of his life having fun with the money that the players earn throughout the game, he stays by Dutch's side because of his loyalty. Something Dutch can't even see. But then Arthur changes his motivations. He's more focused on getting everyone else out because he fears Dutch's newfound blindness to the true purpose of the gang will lead to their collective deaths. Which, that seems pretty reasonable if you ask me. But it's this doubt that Micah uses against Arthur to his own advantage. And It's pretty much what gets Dutch to turn on his old friend in the climax of the game, which, of course, boils down to riding your horse somewhere and shooting your way out of a place. Stupidly, though, Dutch sides with Micah after being revealed as a traitor when he shot and killed the last suspected traitor, but hey, who's keeping count? All of this culminates in a fight with Micah, a fist fight, straight up, where, depending on your honor level, he either kills you or you die to your tuberculosis. Either way, John and Abigail make it to safety. What a hollow ending. Now, let's talk about the open world and the realistic gameplay, which turns out realistic is a synonym for inconvenient. The world of Red Dead 2 is basically sustained by Easter eggs. The most interesting thing to do is to go looking for things and try to come up with theories for the things that you find. The hunting system is counterintuitive. You can't touch a thing in the environment without getting a $300 bounty. And you can't even craft certain things like ammo types without learning the recipes first. How do you learn the recipes, you might ask? I have no idea. Sometimes, though, an escaped criminal will approach you and ask you to shoot their chains off, and in return, they'll give you information about, like, a house you can rob or something like that. But every once in a while, you'll point your gun at them to shoot the chain, and they get scared and run off, taking their information with them forever. It's just gone. Seems like a well-balanced system, though, right? In addition, the game offers no tangible rewards for doing anything more than the bare minimum. Like, if you don't want to stalk your prey for 5 minutes, no problem. Just shoot it with a rifle. You can still eat it. You don't need to sell anything anyway, because at the end of the game, you have so much money, it's absurd. You know what's fun, though? When you're riding your horse to maybe go claim a bounty or something like that. But before you get there, you equip 2 nice rifles, you put a cool ammo type in them, you get you some nice pistols, get some throwables, and it's time to party, kill some folks, get some money. But once you dismount your horse, your rifles just get teleported back onto it because, realism. You know what's real? When you want to start a campfire to cook your newly killed venison, so the game is so kind as to use warp on you to put you somewhere that can sustain a camp. Also, your fire doesn't go out even if it rains. Another thing that's real is when your horse gently nudges a train you're trying to rob and dies forever, forcing you to start bonding with a new horse from the very beginning and making you want to throw your DualShock 4 into the wall with thunderous force, alerting the neighbors. Now, I don't mind taking extra care to keep my chorus filled. That feels the right kind of real. I don't mind brushing my horse to keep him healthy. Love that stuff. What I hate is when, because the game told me I'm supposed to be sick, all my cores are now just permanently damaged and there's nothing I can do to fix them. I hate that for some reason Deadeye is less functional now than it was in Red Dead Revolver. By the way, why does Arthur even have that? Anyway, I hate how omnipotent the cops are to know that you're robbing a train near Rhodes and the Saint Denis Police Department are after you. And I hate how chunky you are in the game, and it's difficult to control your momentum, and you end up bashing into the door at the saloon and make everybody inside very hostile, and then guess what happens? Somebody tries to fight you, you thereby have to defend yourself, and you rack up a huge bounty. Just because. Great game, Rockstar. The epilogue takes place 8 years after the main story and sees John simultaneously trying to live a good life with his family and disregarding everything Arthur taught him. You find Uncle and Charles and Sadie because, of course, and the first opportunity that you get for revenge against Micah for what happened to Arthur, John leaps at it like he didn't listen to a single word that Arthur had to say to him. Nothing's changed, I guess. I mean, look at all these important people in John's life that never come up in the first game. Anyway, you corner Micah, and then Dutch shows up and just kills him, and then he leaves. Nothing more beyond that. You're then free to roam about the open world, but there's no point. I mean, Arthur's an articulate man who can draw, and John is illiterate and half-blind, it seems, because the journal entries take a massive dip in quality. John also can't swim. Like, he just about drowns instantly, which is very cute. And to cap it all off, Sadie and Charles, some of my favorite bits of the entire game, just up and vanish with nothing to remember them by. And overall, Red Dead 2 just left me feeling Red Dead inside. I wanted to love this game. I remember spending 2 years of my life very excited for it. At first I was so blown away by the visuals that I didn't even notice any gameplay flaws at all, or even in the story. But once I saw them, I couldn't unsee them. Which sucks because it was pretty early in the game, so for the next 40 hours, I was just not having a good time. Now, if you like this game, that's fantastic. I don't want to take that away from you. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm just... maybe I can help you understand why opinions on it are becoming split as time goes on, and maybe you can look at the game from a different angle and just see things in a different perspective. I'm not trying to change your mind or anything, just open your mind. But from an objective standpoint, it made a lot of promises that it couldn't keep, and that's pretty much all it boils down to, really. Rockstar bit off more than they could chew, and they made us eat what was left. And I think that's just about all I've got to say to you guys for this one, so I'll see you soon. Also, online sucks.